hold on. And I'll change the page. What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to this episode of EnglishTurks, where I review your favorite Turkish series with and without English subtitles. And it's time for our weekly update. Don't forget to smash that like button to help us with the YouTube algorithm. And if you haven't clicked that subscribe button, go ahead and do that now. Now, guys, this is the third time I'm recording this. The first time, the file was corrupted. The second time, something happened with the mic that I normally used, and all of a sudden, there was this huge, humming noise behind the entire video. I tried to edit it and try to get it to at least simmer down a bit, but it was just too loud. So I decided to do this one more time. And as they say, there's times of charm. So hopefully this one is going to turn out just as great as the other ones did. Let's go ahead and start with Gunde Kotu Gunde. Now remember, in last week's weekly update, I talked about episode 5, even though the finale was already out. So today I just want to kind of bring some closure to that whole series, since it's done, sadly. But I thought the ending, how they ended it, was great. At one point you get a little bit of closure, but on the other side, they still leave room for, if the show is actually getting picked up by whatever online platform wants to take it, then they could do that, because the storyline can transition and still be open, because we got some closure. He's no longer with Melissa, and we knew that eventually had to happen. And actually, if they do pick the show back up, it'll make it easier for Layla and Sarp to be together, because Melissa's not in the picture. And at the same time, it was hard for us as viewers to try to look at it from a point, because Melissa was just not a bad person. She didn't seem like a bad person. So that storyline is still open there. And then we also have the Seda Arda storyline that's still open. And there's so many things that can still happen. And so the way they ended it made it perfect. There's resolution. But then again, if the show comes back, there's an ability to do so. And it's a great show. So I heard that an online platform was trying to pick it up, but I don't know if that's happened. Now, the next show I want to talk about is Menajerimi Ara. As you guys know, they moved Menajerimi Ara from Tuesday all the way to Sunday. And so it was exciting getting basically 2 shows within a 4-day, 5-day span, instead of waiting a whole full 7 days. But yeah, I thought Menajerimi Ara was great. It's one of my favorite shows. It brings a lot of lightness to all the heavy other dramas that we watch, because they're all heavy, but this one is kind of light. Now, the episode ended sadly, Beren basically blaming Dijale for this whole texting thing, texting Ece, telling her about what's going on inside of the company. Now, being that this is the third time I'm filming this weekly update, I've already watched episode 10. And so I've already put the podcast out for episode 10 and episode 9. I don't want to give too much away, just in case you haven't watched it yet. So if you have and you want to check out the podcast, you can definitely do so in the links that I've posted in the description below. Now, the next one I want to talk about is Sefirin Kizi. Guys, that show was intense last week. And I think the show has already aired today. One thing I will say, that I did not like how they ended the previous episode prior to this one, just because, the fragments are always giving you the ending. So it's so smart, because then you watch the whole entire episode just to get to the ending, just to see what the finale is going to be, because you're waiting for that scene to come up. So anyway, they have Melek that goes to the hospital, and honestly, I was a little annoyed with Nade's crying. I mean, she cries a bit, but then she also has this arrogance about her, and she always makes it look like she's not trying to do something, but really she is, if you guys can understand what I'm talking about. Now, Sanjar finally has Akin in his possession. Will he kill him, because they're on the bridge? well, now that we've already seen the fragment, and some of you have probably already watched the next episode, it looks like Nade is going to interfere again, maybe because she doesn't want Sanjay to become a killer. And then in the process of him trying to save her, he ends up falling off the mountain with Akin. Now, if those two don't die from falling, Cocukluk's watching them again, going down, 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 down. If those two don't die, this is the craziest Dizi I've ever watched. Because honestly, I don't even know how Melek is even alive, okay? Nade fell down from that mountain, not even knowing she was pregnant, and she was really early in her pregnancy. And the fact that she fell from that far and didn't lose the baby, whereas women will fall down like 3 steps and lose their kid, like, that's crazy. And she didn't die. So if Sanjay survives this, and obviously he's gonna survive this, I mean, he's the lead male role, they just can't kill him off. If he survives this, which in the fragment it shows us that he does, I don't know how he does. Like, I need to watch it. I'm gonna wait for the English translations to come out because it'll just make it that much easier to understand. Let me know what you guys think about it, but I do think that Gulsiye needs to tell the truth, and in the fragment it shows that she did, so hopefully she does. Okay, the next one I want to talk about is Seref Sözü. Guys, if you are not watching this show and you don't know anything about this show, I'm gonna tell you right now, start watching it. It'll be like one of the best decisions you've ever made. It's not your everyday romance, okay? This is something we don't even know what's going on right now. We have an inkling that Jihan is in love with Isra, but then at the same time we have Yasmin. It's just a crazy show, and guess what? They're all on an island. And so if you haven't watched it, they've only aired 2 episodes. The next episode will come out on Wednesday, and even though the ratings are low, I think the show is still going to be airing quite a few episodes, just because they went through a lot of work just to have this whole set built. So I doubt they're gonna spend all that money just for like 4 or 5 episodes. So watch it. I'm telling you, you won't regret it. It's a great plot scenario breakdown, and I actually, for that show, I did podcast for it, but I also did a YouTube breakdown of each episode. So just in case you're unable to completely follow the story as it goes along, just watch one of those videos and trust me, you'll know exactly what's going on. Now, Masumlar Apartmani. Talk about intense. Guys, what are we gonna do about Han? It seems like he's gone nuts. It seems like he's gone crazy. We don't even know what happened to NJ's dad, and now NJ knows that he was the last one with her dad, and who knows what's gonna happen with that. But then what's even more crazier is that NJ is in their house wearing her outdoor sneakers, putting her bag on the floor, and wearing her street clothes, and sitting on their couch. Oh my gosh, Safia is going to blow the roof off of that place. But let me tell you another thing that was really good about that show this week, and that was Gulben's whole scene. Guys, I was crying. I was bawling my eyes out for her. I felt so bad for her just being in that position and, you know, touching everything, and the mental catastrophe that was going on in her brain at that very moment. And I was so happy that Han came to find her, and that just reaffirmed how much he's needed in their lives. And I don't know what Inja's gonna do about that, because she wants them to go and live on their own somewhere else, and I doubt that he's gonna be able to do that. He might just end up moving into the apartment upstairs with the whole P thing going on. Now, the next one let's talk about is Sen Çal Kapimi. Guys, if you have listened to my podcast, you know that I was not a fan of this week's episode at all. I thought it was poorly done, and the only reason why is because, honestly, they just took a scene out of her Cocukluk and plopped it into Sen Çal Kapimi. Now, if it was a show that didn't get a lot of views, maybe it was Gunde Kotu, where not very many people watched it and not many people knew about it, maybe they could have gotten away with this. But you're talking about Cocukluk, a show that had so much following, such a crazy fandom of the show, and that was one of the most popular scenes in that show. I literally made a music video montage of that scene in the time that it aired, and the show has not been gone for very long. It left us in last year. So the fact that they took that and put this in the show, it was just, I was just literally watching it like I felt like I was just watching Erkenci Kus, except Erkenci Kus was a little bit better. And honestly, it didn't make no sense how they got there. Does he even look like a person that would go to a camping trip? None of them. Peter would never do that. Celine would never do that. Not even Efe would do that. It was just ridiculous. It didn't match the story plot at all. It just looked like something they threw in there. It made no sense. And I shared that in my podcast. Now, there was a listener, a podcast listener, that commented and let me know that the writer from Erkenci Kus is now part of the writing team in Sen Çal Kapimi. And I was like, okay, well, that's great. And I'm glad to find that out, but still doesn't excuse him for using something he's already done. It just makes him look less creative. And honestly, if we're gonna have every Dizi copy each other exactly, because I know there's a lot of similarities between all of them, trust me, I know. But if they're gonna take a scene and just keep copying it and throwing it into another Dizi, then it makes it worthless watching. It diminishes the desire to watch the actual show because you're just watching a repeat of something you've already seen. And another thing that I usually have been saying is that Efe's partner could possibly be Khan. But this listener also let me know that the actor that plays Khan has actually left the show. So there is no reason for there to be a resurrection of the character. And so therefore, that just leaves the grandma. That's it. And in my last podcast, I referenced and said that they're showing little hints because, Efe goes to her house, goes to Eda's house, and they realize they're from the same area. And when he says, who do you know in this area? They kind of like brushed it off and they didn't say anything. So it could be the grandma, and he could be trying to gauge what the response would be if she shows up. And I'm sure we have to find out who she is sooner or later. Now, Dogdugun Ev Kaderindir was another intense one, especially with Mehdi and the chair breaking and the table turning and the yelling and the fighting. Like, it was a lot. And I know I've been saying that this is not going to end well, but I've changed my mind. I do think it's going to end on a good note, and let me tell you why. In the first episodes that we were watching, episode 1, 2, we'd always see Zeynep in this white shirt telling her story. And she's telling it to someone, and we assumed that it was probably a therapy session or something like that. And if you remember, I think it was like episode 3 or episode 4, it could be episode 2. It was one of the very early episodes. We saw Mehdi doing the same thing. He had on a white shirt, he was telling the story, and it was just a few clips, and that's all we ever saw. We never saw it again with him. And so I think that things are definitely going to get worse, and then in the process of getting better, they're both going to end up going to therapy sessions. And even like in this last episode, they showed Nu telling him that he needed to see a psychiatrist. They showed Zeynep telling him he needed to see a psychiatrist. So I think this is all like a stepping stone paving to us getting to see them in these white shirts telling the story, and that's how it's going to end. Mark my words. All right, let's talk about Cocukluk. Guys, if you're not watching Cocukluk, you need to get with it. You need to watch this show. Honestly, I've never seen such amazing children actors. There are some great kid actors out there, but these little kids are amazing. And this week, the star is basically, the show is about Bambi this week and her story and her background, and we're introduced to her aunt. And her aunt has a son that's not very well. He's going through some psychological issues. He's a little bit sick, something like that. And did you see how that little boy was acting? He can't be any older than 7 or 8, maybe even 9. He could be a small 9-year-old or a small 10-year-old, because I've seen smaller. But this kid was amazing. Did you see how he was portraying this character with the rigid hand? And even when she was grabbing his hand, like, it was so rigid. And then as soon as she let go, he went right back to it, like immediately, just like it was like a real life situation. It's hard for me to differentiate that this is a child actor and this is the character that he's playing, because it was so good. And Bambi also, you know who she looks like? She looks like the little girl from Matilda that was thrown by her pigtails and then picked up all those flowers. She looks just like her. Every time I look at her, it reminds me of that little girl. I mean, her monologue to her mom, was beautiful. These kids, they are amazing actors and actresses. They are the cutest little things, and I definitely think it's worth the watch. Now the next one we're going to talk about is Legacy. As you know, that airs 5 days a week. I didn't do a podcast for it, but I think I can summarize a little bit within this one. And honestly, I was so happy that Zuhal got caught talking bad about Seher in the kitchen, talking bad to her. I was so happy that Yaman caught her, reprimanded her, and I'm actually happy that he reprimanded Seher too, because she didn't stand up for herself. And so maybe it will push her to stand up for herself more, because Zuhal is treating her like a servant. And so anyway, it ended the episode with Seher lying in the street. She fainted, and Zuhal sees her and drives past her, but obviously she made the wrong decision, because who's gonna find her? It's going to be Yaman, and they're gonna be even closer to each other. She just doesn't get it. Poor Zuhal doesn't get it, but she doesn't even want to be with Yaman anyway. So I mean, it's to her benefit. They're just helping out the situation. They're actually pushing them to be together. And another thing that made me happy was that Ali found out that his fiance was lying to him about her mother being on her deathbed and them needing to get married as her final wish. So I'm sure the fiance is going to think that Kiraz spilled it, even though Kiraz didn't. And it's just going to be crazy. I can't wait to keep watching that show. And if you aren't watching it, it airs every day at like 1, but they post it online at around 2:15 in the afternoon Eastern time. Those are like all the shows that I've been watching this week. I just want to talk about some other shows. As you know, last week in the weekly update, I said that Yeni Hayat was being continued, like they were going to continue it. But then I found out through one of the groups that it's actually, they're going to cancel it. I guess it took them another episode to realize they wanted to cancel it still. And so they changed. They were just constantly going back and forth on whether or not they should have it stay or take it off air. And they decided ultimately that it's going to be coming off air. I hope that's the latest that I've heard. And honestly, when I found out that they were going to continue it, I thought about going back. And what I did was I went on YouTube. I looked for like a scene from one of the most recent episodes, and I just couldn't sit with it. It doesn't sit well with me. I don't think the world is ready for that story plot line. So we'll see what happens in the finale. I haven't seen anything that says finale, but yeah, it's not gonna be continuing. All right, I wanna talk about 2 new shows that are coming out that have been recommended to me a lot to possibly watch. Are Alev. I don't know, are you guys gonna watch it, Alev? Because it seems like it's going to be intense. And I have a lot of intense shows already. I got Sefirin, I got Seref, I got Masumlar, I got Sen Çal Kapimi, I got Dogdugun, all of them are intense. So I don't know if I want to add that intense one. And it seems like there's going to be a lot of death in the beginning because all these people are going to die from this explosion. So I don't know. I'm not sure. Let me know what you guys think about 11 in the comments below. And another one is Sol Yanim. And this one's supposed to be coming out sometime in November, which is right around the corner. And it's starring Ozge Yagiz. And if you guys know who that is, that's the girl that was playing in Yemen. You know, she was the lead female, the one that barely ever said a word. And every time people yelled at her, she would just stare there with her mouth shut, sealed tight. I mean, that's got to be the easiest thing to ever to do. The director's just like, just stand there and stare. And this is all she does. If you are good at not laughing, it would be just the perfect role for you. So anyway, yeah, she's recently went back to the set of Yemen because, you know, she's no longer on that show. She left and she celebrated the birthday with the male lead after it was his birthday, and she went and brought him a cake and celebrated with him. So she's starring in this new show, and I'm actually excited to see what she's gonna do. So that one's one I'm probably going to try and watch. Yeah, but that's all the Dizzies that we had going on this week. It was crazy, a lot of things happened, and I was excited to watch all of them. And now that this week has already started, I'm going to be watching these shows too, and I'll talk about Menajerimi Ara episode 10 in the next weekly update. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't smashed that like button, please do so. It does help with the YouTube algorithm. And if you haven't subscribed yet, just click that beautiful red button and let everybody know how much you love this channel. And I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Bye.